now come to order. Ms. Griffith, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Williams?
Present.
Ms. Werner?
Here.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Anderson? Mr. Armiter?
Here.
Mr. Blossman?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Shadowland? Mr. Dampf?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Lockett?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Yarbrough?
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any individuals signed or registered for public comment? Hearing none, before we begin, I would like to recognize two new faces with us in the boardroom. The first is the woman you just heard from. I would like to introduce and welcome Nicole Griffin, who is our new board office administrator. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you.
I would also like to recognize Dr. Bill Crow, who is the interim chancellor at LSU Eunice. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let me just welcome Bill, and he's been there 5 days, and the graduation next week at Eunice will be the largest graduating class, so he's really off to a good start.
Pretty quick. Well, fantastic. Mr. Lockett, would you please convene the Academic Affairs Committee meeting?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the Academic Committee to order. Ms. Griffin, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson? Mr. Lockett?
Here.
Mr. Armiter?
Here.
Mr. Shadowland?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Yarbrough?
Here.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I call on Dr. Haney to present the first item for consideration.
Yes, the first item is a request from LSU Health Science Center in Shreveport, and they're seeking full 5-year approval for their Center of Excellence for Cardio Diseases and Sciences, and it has shown incredibly high performance since its 2013 inception. It has been funded primarily by Feist Endowment, and interest from that endowment provides $1.7 million typically to the center, as well as NIH grants, and those grants have also been critical to the center. They've received a $2 million annual COBRA grant for 5 years, and that can be renewed up to 15. And the center faculty have tripled extramural funding since 2013, a $5.5 million increase. And this center varies a little bit from the, well, not a little bit, it varies from the Health Science Center in New Orleans Center of Excellence. The Shreveport research focus is vascular and neurovascular, and New Orleans is largely cardiac focused. But the two partner together frequently. The center has 38 faculty, encompassing 5 basic science departments and 9 clinical departments, and is a major revenue generator for the whole of the institution, accounting for 90% of all NIH funding granted to the institution. So we are supporting its renewal.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve the request as presented? Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Haney, can you present the next item?
Yes, so the second is seeking approval of the extension of the Center for Collaborative Knowledge. This is a center that has been on its initial 1-year conditional, and it has had a year of success. They've executed a series of lecture series that have been quite engaging on the campus, both for our students and our faculty, a number of workshops and conferences with high attendance. It is truly a cross-disciplinary research center, and they have actually offered their first interdisciplinary course, the materials in art, which is actually taught by a chemistry professor. And again, the emphasis of this center is for it to be truly cross-disciplinary across the whole of the campus. And they have a number of grants that are in the pipeline now that we're confident in. It is also a space where we hope to see our students who are brought in as scholars that will have residence in that center. So we're very supportive of the center and its mission.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve the request as presented?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any objections? Without objections, it is approved. Dr. Haney, can you please present the consent agenda?
Yes, we have a request to rename the Animal, Dairy, and Poultry Master's and Doctoral degree so that it matches the bachelor's degree and the department name, which is Animal Sciences. And we also have approval for 16 Superior Endowed Scholarships so that those can be presented to the Board of Regents for match. And we also, of course, critically, seek the authorization to award degrees to students, meeting the requirements for the December commencement and for our online program.
Are there any questions? All right, I will accept one motion to approve the items on the consent agenda. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? The motion is passed. At this time, I will accept the motion to conclude the academic committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Without objections, the committee is adjourned. Mr. Chairman, the academic committee has concluded.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lockett. Mr. Chatelain, would you please convene the Finance Committee?
Yes, sir, thank you. Nicole, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Chatelain?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Jones? Here. Mr. Lockett?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. Werner? Here. Mr. Yarborough?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We have no action items. We have an update on our supplier diversity program, and so Dan, I'll call on you to kind of make any opening comments.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chatelain, members of the board. Today we will be giving you our update on the supplier diversity program. A couple of key components to this presentation. One will be a presentation of some metrics on with regard to our progress in terms of the program over the past year and year to date. Also, per the board's request at the last meeting, we have 3 of our diverse suppliers who have participated in our program who are here to give brief overviews of what they do and what they're doing for the university and answer any questions you may have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tiffany Robinson and Sally McKechnie to provide the overview and then introduce our guests.
Good morning. As Dan mentioned, we will be providing you those metrics as well as the supplier presentations, but in your packet, for sake of time, we also included some updates to our program, which I wanted to highlight. First, our engagement with the auditors and their requests, providing the documentation that they've asked for. And then we've had several meetings after that to give more clarity and explanation to our reporting numbers, our processes, and we've also done some tests internally to look at our bid solicitation processes and supplier enrollment process. So this month has been extremely heavy with meetings with the auditors to try to help speed along that process. We also included in your packet a flyer for our networking event, which is geared towards the subcontractors and general contractors, connecting them with those construction or facility services staff. So we hope that if you have any contacts, you can pass that along as well. We're using our resources contacts, our database, as well as obviously word of mouth to try to drive the numbers for registration, which opens today. Lastly, you also have a copy of our updated spend charts as well as the enrollment numbers, just to show you the growth over this fiscal year in the packet. We began initial conversations with our first initiative for a mentor protege program, which we are basically pairing a master contract vendor, B&H Photo, out of New York, with a local company here in Baton Rouge that can provide some boots on the ground, immediate sales, customer support service. They are looking for a company that can do that here at LSU, and we've identified a diverse supplier in which they can connect with them, which will become our tier 2 spend based on how the contract will be set up. So I'll get into the presentation, which basically we start by showing you our summary of bid information, and as requested by board member Mallett last month, we wanted to show you the numbers in which our solicitations that are going out from our office, how those fit into the different buckets of solicitation methods, those thresholds, and the required number of suppliers that have to be solicited. Basically, this information only represents the information that is for campuses that are under the procurement autonomy, which is LSU A, E, S, Ag Center, Pennington, and the main campus. The bid timeframes in which board member Mallett asked for from a month-to-month perspective really didn't give a clear picture of the awarded amount because much of it has not been awarded yet. So we broadened the scope to look at fiscal year 19 year-to-date. So the figures that you'll see in the next 3 slides are from 7/1/2019 to the current. On the right side, you'll see the chart that shows that we've solicited a total number of 69 solicitations that fall into our invitation to bid or request for quote process. These are our informal and formal solicitation processes in which we've modified the processes and procedures to require inclusion of diverse suppliers. On the next slide, you'll see where in our RFQ process, we have solicited a total number of 183 suppliers. Of that, 47 were diverse. And with our request for quote process, that is informal. We email or fax the bid to the supplier or mail it depending on the time frame. And so they're getting a direct contact from us to participate in our bid process. In the invitation to bid process, the slide, while the chart looks a little bit overwhelming, basically what it's showing is that through both our direct and indirect methods, we are targeting or soliciting at least 18,000 suppliers because through a more formal process, we're required to post to the state's electronic procurement board, which is LPAC. So the inside ring represents how many we have directly impacted, and the outside shows the additional vendors we pick up through use of LPAC. The next slide will show the total amount of awarded bids in our process. So of those 69 solicitations, you'll see where we've awarded $4.4 million, and 1.2 of that spend has been with diverse suppliers. This represents the last 5 months of our process. We still have 6 months of bids and awards to go, but I think we're charting down the right path.
Thank you, Tiffany. So I will go over the numbers with you. Why isn't this working? So the first chart that is in your packet is the total expenditures for FY18 for LSU main campus and all of those that have procurement autonomy. This does not include the health center's numbers. You will be seeing in the next slides the health services numbers, which is the first time we're actually reporting those numbers. We've done a lot of work with them to make sure that our reporting and spend methodology is consistent across all campuses. There's a summary in your packet, as Tiffany mentioned, about the reporting numbers and how we arrive at those numbers. And we've been working with the auditors as well, just to make sure that it's clear how we're coming up with what our spend is. So you'll notice that in FY17, our Tier 1 spend was $18.6 million, and in 2018, that is $21.1 million. Our total diversity spend, combined Tier 1 and Tier 2, went from $19.6 million to $23.3 million. So that is an overall increase in our total diversity spend. The next slide, last time there was some question about the Aramark contract, so I wanted to bring that forward. The Aramark numbers, because it's revenue generating, we do not, it doesn't impact spend, right? Because they give us money. We don't pay Aramark money, they give us money. So in order to show that, I've showed it as a separate slide. So their requirement under their contract, when we wrote the contract back, you know, little more than a year ago, their requirement was that 10% of all portables and satellite locations were required to be diverse. And they have actually exceeded that. 97 locations they have for portable and subcontractors. 42 of those are with diverse suppliers, so their percentage overall is 43%. The other part of their contract that we wrote in their language was that their spend with diverse suppliers, so it would be their Tier 2 spend, who they get their supplies from, who they get their janitorial from, all of those kinds of things. Their spend had to meet 7% target, and as for a company as a whole, they've met 13. So I just wanted to bring that forward to show that we are monitoring the requirements that we're putting in our contracts to ensure that they are complying. It's not working. Okay, the next chart is LSU Health Science Center New Orleans spend. Their total impact for diversity went from Tier 1, 4.6. It went down a little bit, but they did more in Tier 2 spend. They went from $114,000 to $228,000. The next slide is the Shreveport campus, and their spend, combined Tier 1, Tier 2, stayed pretty much the same. Now, reminding you that those campuses do not have procurement autonomy, so any of their bid requirements over the state's bid threshold must go through the state procurement office. So it's a little more challenging for us to impact some of that spend. Where we can really have impact is more in the Tier 2 spend with their master contracts. Oops. One slide back. This one is Healthcare Science Center's spend. And you'll notice that not only did their spend with diverse suppliers go down, but their total spend went down. And there's a footnote in your packet that talks a little bit more to why their spend has decreased so much. But as you know, a lot of the Healthcare Science Center, healthcare service divisions has been privatized. And so they don't have as much spend as they used to have.
Can I ask you, why wouldn't the percentage of spend be reduced proportionally? In other words, if the whole spending went down, why didn't the percentage of diversity spend at least remain flat? Why did the diversity spending seem to take a disproportionate cut?
I will have to go back and look at the data to be able to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
So, year to date, for total expenditures across all campuses, year to date, we're at $56.9 million in expenditures, and $9.9 million of that is with diverse suppliers. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce to you some of our suppliers that are working with us through this program. And our first supplier is Mr. Perry Franklin with Franklin Associates. And Perry was recently awarded a subcontract as a Tier 2 supplier through a major solicitation that we did. Perry?
Thank you very much. Chairman Williams and members of the Board of Supervisors, it gives me great pleasure to speak to you this morning about such a very important topic. I'm an undergrad of LSU. I've got a graduate degree from LSU, and many of the times I speak to individuals as yourself, Mr. Bob, it's about volunteering for an LSU event or participating in the Alumni Association, but I'm very pleased to be speaking to you today about doing business with LSU. I've been in business for about 14 years, and many of the times you don't see individuals like myself before you because minority-owned businesses are not legacy businesses. They're businesses that are 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old. And for that reason, there's not the capacity to take on many of the contracts that are typically offered by a large institution like Louisiana State University. Many of those programs and projects that are typically bid out require certain levels of capacity. And so I applaud you for the efforts that you're taking on today. I applaud you for letting smaller business owners like myself come before you to talk about the importance of such an initiative. KPMG is a worldwide consulting firm, and because we went to the June outreach that the Supply Diversity Program at LSU conducted, we were put into the system because we're a Hudson Initiative small business certified by LED for the state of Louisiana. We were on certain lists, and it requires these lists for small firms like myself to be identified by large international firms like KPMG. And so, long story short, I flew in last night from New York, participating in a minority business enterprise consortium in New York, where we've been working for 3 years. I'm a small firm on Government Street in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, doing business in New York, and it's because of a similar program that has afforded me the opportunity to work in New York City. And so I come back home last night and I get a call, Perry passed by the office, you need to sign a contract. And just so happens it's a contract that I'm talking about today, so I'm very pleased and honored to be before you to do business with LSU. The project that KPMG has been offered and awarded and now under contract as of last night talks about the buildings and infrastructure on this campus. Many of these aged systems have to go through overhaul and upgrade and things of that nature. But I'm very pleased that LSU has put a component in that initiative to ensure that all of the employees, the stakeholders, the faculty and staff, and even you all will be engaged in the process, because many of the times you take on an initiative like this and there's a lot of fear. People fear loss of their job. They fear improvements and enhancements and P3s and things of that nature may put them out of work. And so my firm will be engaged to engage all of the stakeholders to handle the one-on-one conversations, the small focus group conversations, the large group conversations, and roll that into the data that KPMG is going to be pulling together to make recommendations back to you, very significant recommendations, to make sure that this campus is more efficient moving forward with all of its chilled water and operational facilities. So things like this are so important, but it gives individuals like myself, individuals that bleed purple and gold. I'm a season ticket holder. I travel with the Tigers. I do all the things that you do, but we typically don't get the opportunity to do business with an individual institution that spends $500 million a year. And so now that day is here. And so we're very excited. I'm an active member of the AP Turo Alumni Black Alumni Chapter. This is the information that we'll be sharing with all of our alums. What better way to share the word of supplier diversity than those who bleed purple and gold? They would love to be able to come back to campus and to check on projects, not just tailgate and have a great time. So it's a new day for LSU. We commend you. We applaud you. Small business owners like myself are now becoming engaged in a different facet of LSU life, and it's a great day. So is that my time? Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Franklin.
As Perry said, he got that contract. We just got it signed because I couldn't bring him here without getting it signed. So it really moved the process along quickly.
I know that's right.
Our next guest is SHI International, and SHI has a master contract with LSU, SHI is here to speak with you, and I'll introduce Casey, and then he'll introduce the rest of his team. Casey?
Good morning. On behalf of SHI, thank you for the opportunity to come and present to the Board of Supervisors for the Louisiana State University. My name is Casey Delsperger. I am an account executive based in the New Orleans area with SHI, supporting education across the state of Louisiana, as well as LSU. I've been in the IT industry for roughly 12 to 13 years, and with SHI for 6.5 years. If you're not familiar with SHI, we are the largest minority and women business-owned enterprise in the nation, roughly an $8.5 billion company and growing on an annual basis. We cover the entire United States as well as many countries outside of the United States. So we are a large global IT solutions provider. We work with folks like Dell, HP, Lenovo, ViewSonic, Kensington, many other manufacturers, and some of those are diverse partners of ours. And at the end of September, we signed a master contract agreement with the LSU system and to help provide solutions and services around infrastructure needs from an IT perspective for the university as a whole. So I've been working with the university now for roughly 5 years, primarily without utilizing state contracts, but as I was discussing with purchasing and trying to leverage our diverse business needs, or for the university, the master contract was the correct route to go, and so that way we can assist the university in helping with their diverse initiatives. So with me today I have Romance Watson, who is our Director of Supplier Diversity. I did leave some information on each of your folders around SHI, just high-level overview of our program and what we can provide. Romance is going to speak a little bit more detail about those handouts, as well as how we partner with other diverse companies and how we can help LSU meet their diverse requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, Romance Watson, you're probably all saying, how the heck did he get that name? I can tell you after the fact. But I just wanted to let you know, I work with SHI. I started back in July of 1994, kind of in the same capacity as Casey. In that, we were an infant company when we started in November of 1989. As coming in the 5th year, being a privately held company, we found that we were being mentored by IBM. IBM mentored us because we were a small company. And from that relationship, we still maintain IBM's business to this day. So coming in with the capacity of us being a sales organization, typically sales representatives don't think about the diversity program. The diversity program for SHI didn't even start until 2004, when we brought in a retired procurement agent from the financial sector, who so happened to be our client. And they were to build up this organization for us so they could qualify, quantify, and be able to report our diversity spend with those institutions. From that, as we progress forward, with me being in the sales field, I experienced with a large healthcare provider that SHI lost their small business accreditation, which meant as a commissioned sales rep, I was going to lose about 60% of my revenue. I had a child in the way. I also had, we also had to try to find a way to mentor. So after that meeting, I went up to their supplier diversity manager and said, what is it that SHI can do today that would be able to pay it forward? And they said, if you can find a small, diverse vendor that you could mentor, we want them to work through you to procure their IT software and hardware. And that's exactly what I did. And where it stemmed from myself, it was a feat, because then you're mentoring and you're trying to make sure they're matching, number one, world-class solution. They're vetted, they're paying their bills, and they also can honor and be able to take on the projects that like an LSU would bring on for a small supplier. So taking it up to the 21st century into 2018, the way I've developed the program is utilizing other smaller resellers to work in conjunction with SHI. Not only them, but we also have other solution providers. We would probably say we've worked with over 500 different solution providers, may it be in the cloud solution, in mobility, working with your iPhones, or even in the software spectrum, we're training and staffing. So SHI has found a way, and I had to educate our account executives. So when we see page 33 in an RFP or a SOW that says, prime vendor, are you willing to carve out some of your business to satisfy our diversity needs using smaller vendors? And I would stop that group and say, yes, that's what we wanted to do. So that's what we do today in most cases. And what you see before you is a comprehensive program in which I have developed where we do mentoring with smaller vendors. At the same time, I sit on a board of Frontier Technologies in the state of Delaware, in which I'm mentoring their activity. They were just a small $5 million company, but we were able to entertain and be able to introduce our new clients, our financial clients, to them. So if there are any questions about our program, once again, I'm available to come up here at any time. I'm flying up here from Washington, D.C. to be with you and present. But thank you for the opportunity to attend.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the board for giving us the chance to come and speak before you again. And really appreciate the work that Tiffany and the procurement staff have done to make sure that this program is successful. In the essence of time, we're going to cut the third presentation, and then we'll meet with them afterwards. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I think the data is very helpful to be able to track, and so I appreciate those efforts. Any questions?
I just want to say, y'all know I'm normally pounding my fist on the desk, and this is actually a very positive development. The statistics are helpful. There is work that needs to be done, certainly like all of our endeavors at the university, but this today certainly demonstrates a step in the right direction. So thank y'all for the work. I really appreciate Lee Mallett, who I can't help but feel has really facilitated some of the improved data we're receiving through his committee, and also to the vendors who are here, both the two that spoke and the one that we're going to talk with later for your work and contributions as well. So thank y'all to everybody for this.
Thank you, Nicole. Let the record show that there was no pounding on the desk by the chairman. So, with that completes the business of the Finance Committee. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you so much. Motion and second, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much. Mr. Woods, would you please convene the Property and Facilities Committee?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Griffith, please call the roll.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Shatterland?
Here.
Mr. Lockett? Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Mr. Danf?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Yarborough?
Here.
Quorum is established. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Lombardo to come and present the three items today.
Thank you, Mr. Woods, members of the board. First item on the agenda is a request from LSU Health Sciences Center, New Orleans, to approve the lease agreement between the Louisiana Cancer Research Center and the LSU Board of Supervisors. In 2013, an occupancy agreement between the LSU Board of Supervisors and the Louisiana Cancer Research Center was signed for the Health Sciences Center, New Orleans, to occupy space in the newly constructed LCRC building. The occupancy agreement stipulated that LCRC agreed to provide space without
the requirement of the user payment so long as LCRC received legislative appropriations or funds from other sources sufficient to pay the expenses of the building. A subsequent audit determined that those expenses were being paid from operating rather than from the designated source. In that regard, a new lease was confected. The new lease formalizes the intent of the original agreement. The proposed lease agreement estimates that the first year of operating expenses will total $4.8 million for the entire building. LSU Health Sciences Center leases approximately 47% of the space. So LSU Health Sciences' share of expenses will equal approximately $2.2 million, and that is reflected in the lease. Any questions?
Dr. Hollier, you have any comments on it, or?
No, so this is just the formalization of the arrangement we have with the LCRC. It is the location of the bulk of our cancer research activities going on there.
Make a motion to approve.
It's been moved by Mr. Chatelain, second.
Second.
Okay, without objection. Item number 2, Mr. Lombardo.
Thank you. Second item is a request from LSU Health Sciences Center Shreveport to amend the FY 19-20 cap outlay budget request for Louisiana State University to include the Center for Medical Education and Wellness project. At the September 7th, 18 meeting, the LSU Board of Supervisors approved the FY 19-20 cap outlay budget request for Louisiana State University in accordance with state law and established procedures. Recently, the partnership between LSU Health Sciences Center Shreveport and Ochsner was finalized and became effective October 1. Hence, a new project is being proposed for Shreveport. LSU Health Sciences Center Shreveport requests that the Center for Medical Education and Wellness project be included in the 19-20 cap outlay budget request under the new project category. It's a $56 million project. $28 million would be requested state funds and a $28 million match from the private sector.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Golly couldn't be here today for other commitments, but I have visited with him and the staff, viewed their plans. This educational facility is needed. They have multiple use plans for the facility, and they also need there at the campus additional medical teaching space. The project is not intended to cost LSU anything. It would be funded as been described to you by capital outlay and private donations. It fits within the overall plan with the Ochsner LSU Health Science Hospital too. So I'm very much in favor of this and hope that we will concur.
Good deal. Mr. Armenter?
Mr. Woods, as chairman of the Health Medical Education Committee, I've had a long discourse with Dr. Golly as well. He's very excited about this project. I shared a page of talking points with all members of the board. It is a tremendous project, and I think will help Shreveport in many ways, especially since nothing new has been built there since 2006. Again, Dr. Golly is very excited and spent a lot of time with me, and I'm sure with Mr. Brown. This looks like a terrific project. So I urge support.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? It's been moved by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Armenter.
Actually, I don't think I can second. I'm not on the board.
I second. I second.
Not on the
Second by
committee, sorry.
Mr. Damp? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Lombardo.
Third item is a request from LSU Health Sciences Center, New Orleans, to authorize the president to determine an acceptable university purpose for the donation to the Health Sciences or LSU Health Foundation, New Orleans, of property in St. Tammany Parish. The Al Copeland Foundation wishes to donate to the LSU Health Foundation, New Orleans, 3 parcels of land located in Mandeville near the end of the Causeway Bridge. 2 of the parcels are undeveloped land in the Mariners Village subdivision, totaling 21.43 acres. The 3rd parcel is an additional 7.6 acres and contains a marina. LSU Health Sciences has not finalized the plans for utilizing the property, but intends to retain the donated property rather than convert it immediately into cash.
Tony, I'd like Chancellor Oye, this is a significant gift, and I'd just like him to comment on this gift.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, many of you are aware of Al Copeland, who founded the Popeyes Fried Chicken franchise. Mr. Copeland died of a rare neuroendocrine tumor, Merkel cell cancer, 10 years ago. Sort of his last wish for his son, Al Jr., was to support cancer research and try and find a cure for this untreatable cancer. So for the last 8 years, he has worked very closely with the LSU Health Sciences Center, and all of their fundraising efforts from him, his family, and the Al Copeland Foundation has been donated to LSU Health Sciences Center for cancer research. Again, there was no treatment for this cancer. Since that time, with the work of our faculty in the Immunotherapy Center and others around the country, they have developed a vaccine for Merkel cell cancer. Unfortunately, one of our own faculty members developed Merkel cell cancer, and with the vaccine, he's been cured, so he no longer has the cancer. So it's been an amazing accomplishment, and Al Copeland Jr. is very grateful for everything that LSU has done and all the cancer research that it's done. So he has offered 21 acres of his father's former property to LSU. We have had discussions with developers, and our intent is to lease this for development. And we're very happy to have this gift from him. He's also offered a long-term, continued 10-year ongoing support for the Cancer Center.
This gift is a $7 million gift that's been appraised, and the support that he's putting $500,000 for the next 10 years into further cancer research. I'd just like to get on the record that this is one of our best supporters, Al Copeland Jr., and he is on the board at our medical center. But the family's been wonderful in helping others, and they're just one of the biggest supporters that we could have in the state, in the whole region, not just the New Orleans area.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Alexander. Mr. Blossman, you have any comments on it?
No, I'm very familiar with the property, and I tell you what, it could be a very good partnership, and I think it's wonderful, and it's very generous. I think it's wise, and we need to do it as quick and easy as we can.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented? Moved by Mr. Yarborough.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Any objections? Without any, the motion is adopted. At this time, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Property and Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Ms. Jones, would you please convene the Athletic Committee?
Ms. Griffith, please call roll.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Anderson? Mr. Armater?
Here.
Mr. Blossman?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Danf?
Here.
Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Ms. Chairman, you have a quorum.
At this time, I'll ask Chancellor Gaillou to present the first item for the committee.
Thank you. Good morning. This is Adam Johnson, the athletic director of LSUA, who has been with the university for the past 2 years and 2 months. Adam has brought a lot of fame to the university, has been a very outstanding athletic director. In the last year also, he has been approached by a couple of institutions in Arkansas and Mississippi, asking him to be their AD. So we wanted to retain a good employee a good athletic director. He was named the director of the year by by NAIA, I believe. So he has been an important asset. We wanted to put him on a multi-year contract so that he can be with us for a few more years. So that's Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Chairman, that's Madam Chairman, I guess is the way to say it. And we want your approval to retain Adam Johnson.
Thank you, Chancellor. Are there any questions?
Madam Chairman, thank you. I would just echo those comments. Great, he does a great job for LSUA, very well respected in the community, very engaged in the community. So.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented, Mr. Brown?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Without objection, the motion is adopted. Now I'll ask Dan Lazell to present the next item on postseason compensation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board and the committee. The other athletics committee item is bringing forward a request to authorize the president to approve postseason additional compensation that is due to coaches or head coaches or other staff due to qualification for postseason play. As you might remember, the board passed a policy at the June meeting, and there are, of course, as you know from approving coaches and head coaches and other coach contracts, provisions in those contracts when certain benchmarks are made, such as reaching postseason play. So with that, I would ask for your favorable consideration to authorize the president to approve those additional compensations.
Are there any questions on this item? Is there a motion to approve this resolution as presented? Is there a second?
Second.
Without is there any opposition? Okay, without objection, the motion is adopted. At this time, I'll accept a motion to conclude the athletic committee. Second. All right, is there any objection? Without objection, the committee is adjourned. Mr. Chairman, the athletic committee business is concluded.
Thank you very much. Everyone, at this time, we will adjourn for a lunch break and return at 12:40. 12:40.
Yeah, well, 2 hours. Be a little early tonight. Get a chance to